Welcome back, traders. This is going to be my market outlook on index futures for the week of July 13th. Now, it's been a while since we've taken a look at the monthly chart, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at that, and we'll start with ES. So looking at the monthly chart back in April, we went all the way down into this monthly BSC, and then in the same month we recovered, trading all the way back up, creating a fair value gap. Now, if you look to the left, we also have another fair value gap. We have a SIBI overlapping with a BSC. So I'm taking the overlap as a monthly balanced price range. Should we start going below this monthly balanced price range, we can look for lower prices. But as of right now, I'm not even expecting price to come back into the balanced price range. Now, you'll notice this fair value gap here. You can't really count this as a fair value gap because this is the July candle and it's not done forming, so we can't be sure whether this fair value gap will stay intact or not. So we don't really want to count it right now. This was the last fair value gap, but because it's a part of that balanced price range, I don't really expect price to retrace back down into it. And you can see we rallied up, took out new all-time highs just by a little bit, but I think we could still go a little bit higher. So I want to go down to the weekly chart and take a closer look. All right, so taking a look at the weekly chart, you can see these relative highs, they were taken a couple of weeks back. We have a weekly fair value gap here, a weekly BSC, and this was that monthly balanced price range. But on the weekly chart, you can see that we did a lot of work in here. We can kind of count this whole consolidation as a balanced price range. It's right above the monthly balanced price range. So if price does start trading back into the monthly balanced price range, it would have to have gone through most of this consolidation as well and going down below the swing low. If that does happen, it's not a good sign for bullishness. So that's why I don't really expect price to trade back down into the monthly balanced price range. I think price can still go higher. However, we do have this weekly fair value gap that I was looking for some retracements last week. You can see last week was a pretty indecisive candle. Yes, we do have a small little weekly fair value gap, but I'm not really paying attention to that one because this one is much larger, more prominent. I think if we have some retracement, this will be the fair value gap that I will look for price to retrace back into. Now, zooming into the daily, you can see that we kind of created relative equal highs up here. On Thursday, July 10th, we did poke above this high by a little bit, but there's no bodies above this high, no closure. So I'm kind of looking at this as a slight stop hunt and looking for some retracement. This was the most recent swing low. I think we could go down below there. If we have some retracement, I think we're going to be going back into this weekly BSC. And you can see there is a little bit of inefficiencies here on the daily chart. Now, I do like this one, right? This fair value gap on the daily is about 50% of this weekly fair value gap. So it kind of makes sense. It's also much larger. However, I'm going to be a little bit safer and just use the fair value gap here. This one is a little bit higher. It's at the top of the weekly fair value gap. So if we go back into here, I just want to keep my eyes out to see if there's a setup going for higher prices. Now, of course, I would be targeting these relative equal highs, but also I would do a projection from this low to this high. And if you do some projection, you can see that we have a negative 1.5. That could be a projected target, or even a negative 2 standard deviation. That could also be another projected target that we aim for if we start rallying up above these new all-time highs. All right, now moving on to Nasdaq, pretty much the same thing as ES. You know, you can't really count this fair value gap because the July candle is still forming. So the only thing I could really note on the monthly chart is this balanced price range between this SIBI and this BSC. I'm only taking the overlap here, so part of this BSC I'm not really including in the balanced price range. But like ES, I don't really expect price to come back into this balanced price range. So let's go down to the weekly chart and get a little bit more information. Again, on the weekly chart, we had a lot of work done in this consolidation. That is again why I'm not expecting price to come back into this balanced price range. In fact, if we go below, say, this swing low here, that is going to be a shift in the market structure, and I would be looking for lower prices. There is an inefficiency within the monthly balanced price range. That would definitely be the first place I would target. And then if we get below the monthly balanced price range, well, then I can target lower prices. But that's not really what I'm looking at right now. On the weekly, I'm keeping my eye on this weekly fair value gap I was looking for a retracement last week going into it. We had an indecisive week last week. Did not quite get into this weekly fair value gap, but maybe this week we can get a little bit of retracement back into here. Okay, and zooming into the daily chart, you can see we kind of have relative equal highs as well, same as ES. We did poke above it by a little bit, so no bodies closing above, meaning I'm looking for some retracement. We do have this swing low, and that would hit the top of that weekly BSC, but we can even go a little bit deeper. There is another significant low here that was used into this daily fair value gap. If we go below there, we could even hit this larger daily BSC. But if we do get into this larger daily BSC, I don't really want to see this whole entire fair value gap get closed in. In fact, ideally, I would just like to hit the top of that fair value gap and then start rallying for these relative equal highs. Now, at worst case scenario, I guess we can go about halfway, but you can see that if we close in this entire gap, that also means we're going to be trading below the weekly BSC, which I don't really want to see if we are going to be bullish. So therefore, the top of this daily BSC is probably the most ideal if we start dropping down below this swing low. And then rallying up, of course, relative equal high would be the first target. But again, doing a projection from this low to this high, you can see that -1 standard deviation, we've reached it already. So the next projection target would be -1.5 or even -2. All right, guys, so that's pretty much going to do it for me this time. Nothing really changed. I'm still having the same targets as last week. I'm looking for a retracement back into some inefficiencies, but ultimately I am still looking for a rally for new all-time highs, looking for projected targets. Now, there's a chance that we may not get the retracement and we can just start rallying from here. That's not ideal because, at this point we are already at all-time highs. I feel like if we start rallying from here and I try to get in long, that means I will be kind of chasing price. At least I will feel like I'm chasing price. It will be better for me if we have some retracement and we can get in at a good price. But that's going to do it. Please give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't done so, and until I see you next time, safe trading.